Today we're diving deep into an article from the Spiritual Seek. It really digs into this interesting relationship between being and doing.
Yeah.
You know how we always emphasize achievements?
Mm-hmm.
Well, this article kind of flips the script and says, hey, maybe we need to look at our inner being like as the foundation.
Right. It's saying we can't really do more than what we are.
Yeah.
So understanding that connection, that's crucial for aligning our actions with who we truly are.
And they use this analogy of the sun and its rays.
Oh, interesting.
It's like, just as those rays come from the sun, our actions stem from our inner being.
So it's suggesting that if we cultivate our inner sun,
Right.
we can directly influence how we act and what we do.
Exactly. And then the article brings in this Vedic concept of Purusha,
Okay.
describing the universe as like this living being where everything's connected.
So challenging that idea that we're all isolated individuals,
Yeah.
and instead showing how our actions have these ripple effects through everything.
It's like our actions aren't these isolated events, but they're like threads in this giant cosmic tapestry,
Exactly.
which makes you think about responsibility. You know, like how can we act in a way that benefits not just us,
Right.
but the whole system?
The article actually digs into the Bhagavad Gita's perspective on action
Okay.
and outlines these 5 factors that contribute to every single action we take.
5 factors.
Yeah, so you have the individual, the circumstances, the instruments of action, the effort, and then this interesting one, divine will.
Divine will.
Yeah, like a force beyond our control influencing things.
That adds a whole other layer to it.
Right. It really makes you think about the role of a higher power or some universal intelligence.
Definitely. And then the article shifts gears a bit.
Okay.
And starts talking about these common misconceptions that pop up when we ignore the principle of being,
I see.
like the illusion of separation.
Oh, where we see ourselves as disconnected individuals.
Exactly.
Which can lead to misunderstanding the impact of our actions.
And overlooking all those connections that tie us to everything else.
It's like a wave forgetting it's part of the ocean.
Perfect analogy.
And
And then another misconception they address is this idea of God being purely sentimental.
okay.
They contrast that with the concept of divine justice.
So not just feeling bad for someone, but actually upholding what's right.
They use this analogy of a judge.
Okay.
You know, they can be compassionate, but still have to give a fair verdict.
It highlights that compassion doesn't just wipe away the consequences.
Right. Divine justice suggests that actions have repercussions no matter what the intention was,
And that ties into the law of karma.
which they discuss later on.
Right. It connects being and doing to this idea of karma, saying that actions coming from a distorted understanding of being.
They inevitably lead to karmic consequences.
Basically saying that if we understand our true nature and we act accordingly,
We can influence those karmic repercussions we experience. And they have this really interesting analogy to illustrate it.
What's that?
Biting your own tongue versus someone else biting it.
Oh.
The pain's the same.
Right.
But our reaction changes based on where we think it came from.
Because in one case, you understand why it happened.
Exactly.
Mhm.
So it emphasizes the role of understanding in our experience of karma.
I see.
When we get that our actions, even unintentional ones, have consequences.
Right.
We can face those consequences with more awareness and responsibility.
Definitely.
And finally, the article wraps up by emphasizing this need for deeper understanding before action,
Okay.
like echoing the Bhagavad Gita's focus on buddhi yoga
The yoga of intelligence.
as the basis for taking the right action.
It encourages us to develop that discerning mind
To really consider the consequences of our choices before we act.
instead of just reacting impulsively.
And the article even includes this quote from the Bhagavad Gita that captures this beautifully.
Oh, yeah.
Yatadagra vyam eva parimam popamam.
What does that mean?
It translates to, initially action may seem like poison, but with understanding it yields the nectar of wisdom.
So even actions that seem challenging or negative can lead to growth and wisdom.
Exactly. If they're done with a clear understanding of our being and its connection to everything else.
That's pretty powerful.
So the article is really encouraging us to not just see life as a to-do list,
Mm-hmm.
but as a chance to cultivate our inner being,
And let that truth guide our actions.
which can lead to more fulfillment, deeper connection, and a more profound impact on the world.
It's all about going beyond that surface level understanding of ourselves
Right.
and really diving into the depths of our being.
Recognizing that our actions are a reflection of who we are at our core.
Exactly. It's really interesting how this idea of understanding our inner being before acting ties back to that idea of interconnectedness we talked about.
Right. Like when we see ourselves as part of this larger whole,
Mm.
it changes how we view our actions.
Exactly. Our focus shifts from just personal gain to what benefits everyone.
Instead of asking, what's in it for me?
Right.
We start thinking about the impact on the entire system.
And the article even mentions that if we ignore this interconnectedness, we might feel empty and frustrated.
Even if we're achieving things externally.
It's because true fulfillment comes from aligning our actions with who we really are.
Not from just checking things off a list.
And contributing to something bigger than ourselves.
It's not just about doing good deeds, but about cultivating those inner qualities that naturally lead to positive action.
The author specifically says, actions rooted in a distorted understanding of being inevitably lead to karmic consequences.
Meaning that when our actions don't match up with our true nature, it creates this imbalance.
Which ultimately comes back to affect us negatively.
Karma isn't about punishment or reward, though.
Right.
It's more about cause and effect.
Our actions create these ripples that eventually come back to us.
And the article reminds us that we can't escape those consequences.
But if we get this connection between being and doing,
we can learn to act in ways that create more positive outcomes.
For both ourselves and the world around us.
And they emphasize Buddha yoga, the yoga of intelligence, as a way to cultivate that understanding and make sure our actions match our being.
It's about developing a mind that can really consider the consequences of our choices.
Before we act.
Instead of just reacting without thinking.
Bringing awareness to our actions instead of just running on autopilot.
Taking that pause to reflect on our choices.
And their potential impact.
This idea of interconnectedness also brings to mind that Vedic concept of Purusha.
Oh, right. The universe as this living being.
Where every part is connected and influences every other part.
It really highlights just how far-reaching our actions are.
It's like how one tiny cell can affect the health of an entire body.
Our individual choices actually contribute to the well-being of the whole universe.
It makes you feel a sense of responsibility.
It's humbling to realize we're not separate from the universe.
But an integral part of it.
And even our smallest actions have these ripple effects beyond anything we can imagine.
The article also brings up the Bhagavad Gita's teaching of the 5 factors of action.
Reminding us that our actions aren't completely determined by our own will.
Those 5 factors.
The individual, the circumstances, the instruments of action, the effort, and divine will.
They all highlight this complex web of things that contribute to any action we take.
Recognizing those factors helps us approach life with more humility.
And acceptance.
Understanding that we're not in total control of everything that happens.
It's kind of liberating, actually.
It takes away that burden of thinking. We're solely responsible for every outcome.
The article also touches on this concept of divine justice.
Challenging the idea that God is just purely sentimental.
Yeah, they use that analogy of a judge.
Who might be compassionate.
But still has to uphold justice.
It shows that true compassion isn't about ignoring wrong actions.
It's about supporting justice and encouraging growth.
Even when we experience difficult consequences.
There might be a higher purpose at play.
Guiding us toward greater understanding and evolution.
And the article ends with that quote from the Bhagavad Gita.
Yat tadagravyam eva parimanforpamam.
Meaning, initially, action may seem like poison, but with understanding, it yields the nectar of wisdom.
It's a great reminder that even tough experiences can help us grow and transform.
If we approach them with understanding and a willingness to learn.
This whole discussion about being and doing has been so insightful.
It's really shown us the importance of aligning our actions with who we really are.
It's not just about what we do, but who we are at our core.
And how that inner state shapes our choices.
The article suggests that if we cultivate things like wisdom, compassion, and integrity within ourselves,
our actions will naturally reflect those qualities,
leading to a more positive impact on the world.
It all starts from within.
Shifting our focus from achievements to internal development.
It might seem counterintuitive in a world that's so focused on productivity.
But neglecting our inner being can leave us feeling empty.
Even when we're successful on the outside.
It's about nurturing our inner landscape.
Not as a way to get something,
but as a crucial part of living a fulfilling and meaningful life.
Recognizing that our actions are a reflection of who we are.
And by working on our inner being,
we can change how we act and the impact we have.
The article encourages us to go beyond a surface-level understanding of ourselves.
And really dig deep into who we are.
Looking at the things that motivate us, our beliefs and values.
This process of self-discovery can be tough.
But it's crucial for making sure our actions line up with our true nature.
And we can cultivate this deeper understanding through things like introspection and having those conversations that challenge our assumptions.
This whole deep dive into being and doing has given us so much to think about,
It's a reminder to be more mindful in our lives
to pause and reflect before we act,
and to consider the consequences of our choices.
both for ourselves and for others,
The article really emphasizes cultivating a discerning intellect, like in Buddha yoga,
so that we're not just acting on impulse or external pressures.
but making choices based on our values and understanding the potential impact
This deep dive has given us a way to understand this powerful connection.
between our inner state and our outward actions.
And it's a good reminder that self-discovery and inner transformation is an ongoing journey.
It takes constant effort
Reflection.
and a willingness to embrace the challenges and opportunities that come our way.
This whole exploration of being and doing it really highlights how important it is to make sure our actions line up with our true nature.
It's not just about what we accomplish, it's about who we are at our core.
Yeah, and how that influences the choices we make.
Exactly. The article suggests that if we cultivate qualities like wisdom, compassion, and integrity within ourselves,
Our actions will naturally reflect those qualities.
and ultimately have a more positive impact on the world around us.
It's a reminder that real lasting change, it has to start from within,
Absolutely. And the shift from focusing on external achievements,
to focusing on internal
it
development,
can feel kind of backwards,
especially in a world that's so fixated on productivity and results.
But the article makes a good point that if we neglect our inner being, we end up feeling empty.
Even if we achieve a lot externally,
True success comes from nurturing our inner landscape,
not as a means to an end.
but as a fundamental part of living a truly fulfilling and meaningful life.
It's recognizing that our actions are a direct expression of who we are.
And so by tending to our inner being
We can change the quality of our actions.
and the impact they have on the world.
The article encourages us to really look beyond a surface-level understanding of ourselves,
To delve deeper into the core of our being.
to examine those motivations, beliefs, and values that shape everything we do.
This process of self-discovery can be challenging at times,
But it's absolutely crucial for making sure our actions are aligned with our true nature.
and there are practical ways we can cultivate this deeper understanding.
Like what?
Things like introspection, meditation, and even engaging in thoughtful conversations.
The kind that challenge our assumptions and help us see things from new perspectives.
Exactly. It's about having the courage to look inward and confront those limitations and biases we all have.
Recognizing that this self-reflection, it's essential for growth.
This deep dive into the relationship between being and doing has been really insightful.
It's given us a framework for understanding that profound connection between our internal state and our outward actions.
And it's a powerful reminder that the journey of self-discovery and inner transformation, it never really ends.
It's an ongoing process that demands our constant effort,
And reflection.
along with a willingness to embrace whatever challenges and opportunities come our way,
The wisdom shared in this article, it can act as a guidepost for all of us.
encouraging us to cultivate our inner being, align our actions with our true nature, and live in a way that benefits the well-being of everyone,
It's a reminder that we all have the power to create positive change.
both within ourselves and in the world around us.
By truly embracing this profound connection between being and doing.